We can't hear you.
Look at that cute background.
That is cute.
Casey, we can't hear you.
Okay, great afternoon. How are y'all doing today?
There you are. We're good. How are you?
All is well. I said there's so many screens up. Let me see which one I'm gonna shut down.
Well, you have a cute background.
Thank you.
And Kimberly, are you joining us? I see Kristen. Are y'all here? Good, everybody?
I am here. I currently have COVID, so I don't want to show my face. I don't look very good right now. But
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Okay. Do you have anybody with you?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm okay. Yeah, you just don't want to see me.
Okay, that's fine. Do you mind telling us which group you guys are with, or your?
Oh yeah, I'm with CoLearn.
And
CoLearn Academy. Yep.
Okay.
I'm with Level Up.
I remember, Casey.
Greenville, Mississippi.
Yeah, yep. And Kristen, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. Well, I guess we have a small group, so we can go ahead and get started. I'll just start by saying to those of you that I don't know, introducing myself, I'm Lisa Karmacharya, and I'm the Executive Director for the Charter School Authorizer Board. I have been with the board for about 4 years now, so this is actually my 5th application cycle to go through. Looking forward to this one and getting it kicked off and started. I have my team members with me, and I will let each of them introduce themselves. So once you go, then pass it to the next one, and then we'll get started with the webinar.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm Jordan, the office administrator for the agency. I've been with the board for about 4 years. Super excited about the kickoff of this cycle and looking forward to approving more high quality schools in the future and just the growth of the sector in general. So I'll pass it to Amy.
Hi there, I'm Amy Tisdale. I'm the newbie. I just started in November. I'm general counsel for the agency, and I'm looking forward to learning a ton about the application cycle and hopefully getting some more quality schools out there for the kiddos.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. Do you guys want to say anything? I know it's a small group. Anybody want to say anything? Kristen, you want to introduce yourself and tell the folks who you're with?
Sure. My name is Kristen Rodriguez, and I am a contract employee for Embark, Mississippi. Embark, Mississippi. They're an offshoot of Empower, and we are looking to work with people through their application cycle. We currently have one school that we're working with right now.
Yep. Okay. Well, thanks, Kristen, for introducing yourself. And Kimberly, we certainly hope you get to feeling better soon. But we'll go ahead and get kicked off with the presentation, and it is being recorded, just so you know. I'm just going to let you know that up front. We will have it posted on the website for any of your team members that were unable to attend today. And so then you can access that whenever, and Jordan can actually send you a link as well. If you would pop your email address into the chat, that'd be great. So we will start again. Welcome. The purpose of today's training really is to just provide everybody with a general overview of what the application process looks like. We're going to highlight a few areas of the application, and then we'll talk about a few of the important dates that you guys will want to get on your calendars right away. So what is the purpose of the application? The charter law actually defines that very clearly. The purpose of the application is to present your plan for the school's academic and operational vision, and then to demonstrate your capacity to carry out that vision and your plan, and then to provide the authorizer board with a clear basis for assessing your plan and your capacity. One of the things that you're going to see throughout the presentation and throughout the application itself is the word evidence. So I want you to be conscious of that, because Clear and compelling evidence is what your application evaluators will be looking for throughout the entire application, not just a hope and a prayer or a wish, but true evidence that you have a solid plan in place, whatever that plan looks like, that it's well thought out, it's well developed, it's coherent, it's cohesive, and it aligns throughout the entire application. And then just a reminder that the approved charter application does not actually serve as your contract. Once an applicant is approved to operate a charter school in Mississippi, then you engage in a performance contract with the authorizer board. But just because an application is approved, that does not mean it serves as your contract. Okay. So what is our role then in granting charters? Well, I alluded to that just briefly. However, there is additional things that we're looking for, and additional things that the authorizer has a responsibility for. And primarily our role, our statutory role, our statutory obligation is to approve high quality schools and approve applications that demonstrate the likelihood of success, that the applicant team is able to articulate that throughout their entire application and their proposed budget, and that there is evidence of competence throughout the application. So I talked a minute ago about evidence. You see, I've highlighted that word here 3 different times, just because that's what the authorizer is going to be looking for a lot of evidence that you can demonstrate through not only the application, but if you're invited to a capacity interview, that you're able to further demonstrate whatever the third-party evaluators have questions about. So the other piece of that for the authorizer board is that we're to follow policies and practices that are incredibly transparent, that they are based on merit, and they avoid any type of conflict of interest or an appearance thereof. So we have a role to step back a little, and then our third-party evaluators will do the heavy lifting in terms of evaluating the applications, and then we take the role of approving those applications as they come through. So the applicants are either approved or denied at some point in the process. So who's eligible to operate a charter school in Mississippi? Casey, you know this because you were a part of this process before, but only nonprofit organizations may hold a charter in the state of Mississippi. Charter holders may only contract with nonprofit educational service providers. Sometimes you might hear that term ESP, and sometimes it's referred to as a CMO, but it's a charter management organization or a service provider. Sometimes they're conflated to be one and the same, and our law clearly articulates in section 3728(5) what an educational service provider is. So if you have questions about that, you can always look that up. Applicant teams also have to provide proof of U.S. citizenship for everybody. So for your board members, your school staff, and if you are contracting with an ESP provider, those folks have to have proof of citizenship as well. And then if you're approved to operate, a charter school has to function as an LEA. And by that, we mean a local education agency, a public school in the state of Mississippi, independent of a traditional district or a traditional school. So applicants may propose districts or propose schools in districts that are rated a D or an F. I will say this year, there are only 14 districts where a charter school can be located because our accountability model for Mississippi is built around growth, primarily a lot of growth. And we saw a lot of growth from 2019 to 2023. And so the number of D and F districts was reduced significantly from the 2019 year, when I think there were 41 or 42 D and F districts. But you can get this information from the Mississippi Department of Education website, and all those details are available at that link there, and this link is live in the presentation. So if you have questions about whether or not your proposed school's location is going to fly this year in a D or an F district, then you can go to this document and find that answer. The other piece to this is you can apply in a district that is rated an A, a B, or a C. So you're really not limited in that respect. However, there's a caveat to that, and you have to receive approval by the local school board. So, and they have to vote on that at a public meeting. So if you want to go into a district that's rated C or B or an A, then you do have to work really closely with that local district and then get their approval. And then finally, all new schools that are approved through the process will be a public school, as I said a few minutes ago. And in addition to that, you are subject to the Mississippi ethics laws and open meetings laws. And when I say the ethics laws, I'm talking about your governing board members are subject to that, and they have to do what you call a statement of economic interest and complete that as well. But again, all those details are available at the links either in the application or the links here. So if you're thinking about submitting an application, you've probably been asking yourself a lot of questions. And what I want to do now is just run through a few questions that if you haven't thought about, it's probably time to think about them. So one of the first things you need to do is be thinking about your community. So one, is your proposed school going to be located in a district or a community where it's eligible? We talked about that, but have you researched the community? Are you going into a community where there's a need and a desire to have a charter? Sometimes there might be a need, but there might not be a desire from that local community. And so really working with the locals there in that particular community and getting their support is going to be critical to your success, future success, and even to some degree, the success of your application, because you're going to need some evidence in your application that you do have community support. That doesn't mean that everybody in the community has to be rallying around you in your application or be thrilled to know that a charter school is coming to their district potentially, but it does mean that you need to have some level of support. And we're not going into a community and doing to them something. We're actually working with the community to ensure that whatever school model, whatever school's proposed is a part of that community. So really thinking in terms of community-driven schools. Also, you want to ask yourself, do you have a high quality leadership team in place? And you can be establishing that now. You can have folks on your leadership team who are either going to be a part of the founding governing board or a part of your staff, but building a very diverse, expert board or leadership team is central to the success as well, because you as the leader or a founding leader, you can't know everything. So you can't know everything about finance, you can't know everything about curriculum, you can't possibly know everything about the law. There are a lot of moving parts, and whether it's with the Department of Education and their standards and the accountability there, or whether it's about our contract and what's involved in that and the performance framework. So you really need to be thinking about, how am I going to build a diverse team that can be successful throughout this application process, and then ultimately open and operate a high quality charter school. You want to make sure that when you do have your governing board in place, that they understand their roles and they understand the governance structure that's going to be a part of this team. So, you have to have a nonprofit. You can have a nonprofit that does other things, but when you're working with the school, the governance structure of that nonprofit is going to have to independently work with the school. So they will have to have meetings that are independent of, they'll have to have conversations that are independent of, they'll have to be subject to that Open Meetings Act, all of those things separate from what would be another role. And we have a couple of groups that do that in the system already in our portfolio. It's not impossible. It might be a little more difficult to some degree, but it's not impossible. The other piece, you need to have a viable and realistic plan. So your plan needs to really make sense all the way through as you're creating that plan. Is it realistic? Is it something that or is it obviously you want to have some vision for reaching the stars, so to speak, but you also have to be realistic about what can happen. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. You want to set yourself up for success. And then you want to ask yourself about your financials. You know, Mississippi doesn't offer a whole lot of money in terms of our base student cost. And so you have to be realistic about that too. What can you do year one? What can you do year two? How can you build that financial strength out over time so that you have the a financial help that is strong enough to meet the needs of the children in the school. So how can you ensure that you're providing transportation and food and high quality curriculum and instruction, and how are you building in your staff to support the needs of the special ed children and the EL children? How are you doing all that, and do you have the financials to support your plan? So philanthropic dollars where you can for startup are super important, because again, we don't have a whole lot of money available. There is money available through the CSP, the charter school program, but that does not come from our office. It did in the past, but it will not come from our office going forward. So there is money out there for charters that are approved and in pre-opening, and we can talk more about that as we go forward. Then you want to ask yourself about your instructional model. Is it very innovative? There are a lot of different models out there. There are career tech models. There are Montessori models. There are single sex models for kiddos in schools. There are problem-based learning. There are, I'm trying to think what else right off the top of my head. No excuses or high expectations. It typically is called high expectations now, but problem-based learning and innovative models such as that. So be thinking about whether you want to provide a continuous model of instruction, non-graded, or a very specific direct instruction type program. Because again, there are a lot of models out there, successful models, and I would encourage you, if you haven't thought about that, to really dive deep into what those models look like, and then ask yourself, what kind of support financially and instructionally would I need to carry out that type of model? And then finally, do you have the time and commitment from the team? Do you have what it takes on your team to develop this plan, put together the plan, and then bring it to fruition at the end of the day, so to speak? So I'm going to pause there, and since we're a small group, and see if anybody has a question.
I have a question.
Sure.
We currently have a charter school that's statewide authorized in Arizona.
Uh-huh.
Have statewide authorization in Mississippi, or would we need to go through a specific district?
No, it's statewide. We are the only authorizer in the state.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you. I guess I should have said that to begin with, but that's a good question. All right, so now we're going to move into just the application cycle itself. So what happens first? It's the mandatory letter of intent. So all applicants must submit their letter of intent, and they have to be complete and prepared according to the instructions in order to be eligible to submit a full proposal. So Jordan, if you don't mind popping into that letter of intent, it's not cumbersome. It might feel like it, but there is not a lot of detail in it that you have to provide. I think it's probably more time consuming than anything. So you'll see the directions down there for submitting the letter of intent and what's included in that packet. You'll want to make sure that you save everything as a PDF and upload that into Epicenter, which is our online submission platform. And then if you don't get that submitted by 3 p.m. on the deadline, then you will not be eligible for this cycle. There's a checklist here that tells you what you need. Again, not too cumbersome, just probably a lot of information in terms of pages and things like that. So the first page here that Jordan's on, these are just going to ask general questions. Who is your organization? That's your nonprofit. Who's the primary contact person, where you're located, details like that. And then whether or not you're an existing, Kimberly, I heard you say you are an existing operator in Arizona. So you would check that box up there that says existing operator, and your application would look a little bit different than those that are not existing. So we have new operator, existing operator, and then a conversion school operator. And you can see they'll ask just a brief question about your statement of mission, and then kind of in general, how are you going to provide your instructional focus for your school? What's it going to look like? And then I would say too, one thing that I didn't mention earlier, I think is really important, and that is once you've defined your instructional focus, your school model, I think it's super important also to throughout the entire application, how is that aligned to the state standards? And then how is that serving the population that you're going to be required to serve? So in that particular district where you're going to locate. So just making sure that those pieces are married and articulated pretty clearly throughout the entire application. Okay, so that deadline again is March the 10th. Be sure and mark your calendar. And then 1 week from that, all the eligible applicants will receive notification through email. And then on the 31st of March, we'll have an eligible applicant webinar. And we'll go a little deeper into the application at that time. Okay, so the checklist, we've already talked about that. Your articles of incorporation, your 501c3, your proof of U.S. citizenship for all God's children, and then your if you are going to convert a school, then you have to demonstrate support for that. So if you're taking a traditional public school and converting to a charter, then you have to be able to articulate the support that you have for doing so. It is allowable under state law. We have not had anybody do that. So for stage 1, the completeness check, the deadline for your complete proposal is going to be May 19th this year. Every proposal has to be submitted in complete and final form by that date through the online portal, which is Epicenter. And then any incomplete proposals that are partially uploaded or just incomplete in any way are going to be disqualified from this cycle. So I would say it is super important to upload and submit your documents as they're completed. Because if you wait until the very last minute, anything can happen. We've had people who've had, power failures and internet issues and all kinds of things happen. And so start uploading as complete so that you're not at the last minute rushing around trying to get things done. Completeness checks for the applications are distributed on May the 26th, or will be. And then the technical assistance provider will provide you with a review and a determination letter. And then you'll have 48 hours to rectify anything that is relatively minor. So that in that 48-hour remedy window, this is not a time to redo your entire application, but more of an opportunity for you to fill in any gap that you might have missed. Maybe you missed one of the questions. Maybe you missed an upload of a submission or an attachment. Maybe there was something in there that there wasn't a connection. So this is just a time for you to really look at the minor issues that might be called out from the evaluators. And again, not a time to redo the entire application. Final completeness checks then will be distributed on June the 9th. And then as a reminder, anybody applicant team that doesn't satisfy or rectify these issues within that 48-hour window will not be able to go on to the next stage. And we'll have to think about reapplying for next time. Okay, for stage 2 then, this is the threshold quality review. From June 12th through July 12th, of 2023, independent evaluators will assess the critical elements of each proposal against the published stage 2 evaluation criteria. And they're going to look at 5 to 7 different areas. If you're an existing operator, you have a few more questions in this area. And so they'll look at 7. If you're a new operator, they're going to be looking at 5 areas. They are all very well laid out in the application. You can look through there, and I would encourage you to go through each one of those criteria and make sure that when you are working on this section, that you answer every single question that's applicable to you and your whether or not you're the new or existing operator. And then findings will be distributed on July the 14th. and you'll know whether or not you are going to be recommended for stage 3. You see a note down here about the application committee. We will have our application committee from the board involved in some of the decision making, but that is simply after the third-party evaluators have done their evaluation, then the application committee will get involved and make decisions on who to recommend to move forward based on what they hear from the evaluators. Okay, so stage 3. July 17th through August the 11th. This is when the evaluation team goes into a super deep dive. They are going to really flesh out your responses against the criteria. They're going to look at every single probing question. They're going to make sure that every question is answered, every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and that you, again, have a really compelling, comprehensive, cohesive application that makes sense, that's very realistic and very well thought out, very well developed, and that there is a lot of evidence and research built into that application. Last year, we in working with NACSA, and you'll know who NACSA is, we worked with them through the application cycle and took a peek at what are some of the areas that we might be able to improve in our application process. And one of the recommendations from NACSA was to include an invitation to the capacity interview. So at this point in the cycle, Jordan, you can pull up that criteria. Applicants may or may not get an invitation to the capacity interview. And these are the criteria that will be in place. And this is really important for you to look at as well. So there is a meet the standard, partially meets, does not meet, and falls far below throughout the entire application. And so when you get, Jordan, can you scroll to the bottom? Thank you. So once the evaluators have looked at this, they're going to make sure that you've met 75% or more of those areas that have been evaluated, that you have an overall rating of meets or partially meets the standard, and that has to meet that 75% threshold. Then there are less than 5 overall, falls far below, and the financial plan and the financial management needs to meet or partially meet the standard. And so I would encourage all of you to go on, thank you, Jordan. I would encourage you all to go on to our website. There are successful applications and applications that have not been successful. And I would encourage you to look at those and look at those reports. And the very first thing I would do as a team member would be to take a successful application and lay that out against the standards, against the prompts, and say, okay, how did they make that work? How were they able to articulate in a narrative, not more than 75 pages, how were they able to make all of that happen for them? And do a really deep dive, just take apart each one of those prompts and dissect them. Ask yourself the questions, how did all this come together? And that'll give you a really good starting point on how you need to navigate and put your plan together. Capacity interviews will be August the 22nd through August the 24th this year. And please, please, please mark your calendar for those now. Those dates will not change unless, God forbid, we had something major like COVID or something happen again. Those dates are on the calendar and will not change. So just go ahead and mark your calendar and keep those days open. Okay, milestone 3, your independent evaluations continued here, your public hearings or a public comment period. Those dates and locations are just to be determined. Depends on where your proposed location is and what the communities are doing. And sometimes we have public comment period and sometimes we have public hearings. So just kind of dependent on what the application cycle looks like. We've had to do both. And then, of course, during COVID, we couldn't do anything but the public comment period. On September the 5th, another important date, independent evaluation teams will send their recommendations to the applicants. And then you will have a few days to respond to factual inaccuracies. This is, again, not a time to rebuild your application or redo your application. It's really just an opportunity for you to respond. Oh, you know what? They think they mentioned that we're having a K-8 and we've only are really applying for a K-6. And so clarifying anything that's not exactly correct in terms of facts in the application. And then on September the 25th, the authorizer will make their final decisions. All right, so the components of the application, again, really high level here. For eligible applicants, we'll go into much more detail about what's included, but high level components of the application, you'll have a cover sheet. You'll have an executive summary, and that's going to be limited to 2 pages. Then you'll have your enrollment summary or enrollment projection table, and you'll have 2 pages there for your limit. Your proposal will be 75 pages, which I just mentioned. And then in the application, there is a comprehensive list of attachments, and those are provided in the instructions of the application. Okay. Specifications for formatting your documents. We were just talking about this a few minutes ago. Everything on here is a Word document with the exception of one. So you will be able to submit everything in a Word format with the exception of your financial plan workbook. And that will be your proposed plan, your pre-opening, and your 5-year plan. And that's an Excel document. And I've mentioned Epicenter a few times. We'll talk about that just at the end of this presentation, just a little bit more, but pretty self-explanatory here. Everything, again, Word document with the exception of the Excel for your financial plan. A few more details here on formatting. Just remember your proposal has to be typed. It needs to be with 1-inch margins, 12-point font. You must adhere to all the page limits as are indicated in the application. And then if you believe as a team that a prompt or a question does not apply to you, then put NA and then state the reason that you believe it's not applicable for you. I think that is really important because we have had applicants who just put NA and then didn't state the reason they felt like it was not applicable. So make sure that you're looking through that entire prompt. And like I said earlier, dissecting that, breaking that prompt down and making sure that you answer every single section of the question. And again, if it's not applicable, state that and then state the reason why you believe that. All of your documents have to be uploaded in the file format that's specified. And we've kind of alluded to that already. Be sure to review everything before you submit it. Make sure everything is complete and all of your documents are clean and that there's not headers or footers falling off the bottom of the page or anything like that. Just make sure that everything looks really professional and that it's clean and follows the specifications for formatting. Okay. All right, attachments. I mentioned this just a minute ago, but on page 9 of the RFP, the application, you will see there are 21 attachments for new operators and 24 for existing operators. Attachments are all uploaded through the Epicenter platform, and please just don't upload any documents for an attachment that's not applicable. And then pay close attention because, again, there's 21 for new, 24 for existing. And so every attachment will not, 1, have a resource or a template, and then 2, they won't be applicable for every operator. All right, code of conduct. Okay, this is an important piece as well. Charter school applicants, all charter school applicants have the responsibility of 1, respecting, and 2, upholding the integrity of the charter school process. And specifically, charter school applicants shall not initiate or attempt to initiate any conversation or activity with a Mississippi Charter School Authorizer board member, with the exception of a public hearing. Applicants cannot initiate or attempt to initiate any activity with a member of the evaluation team. That's our third-party evaluators. You can't direct any of your communications, including proposal documents, to an authorizer board member or to the evaluation team. And if an applicant is found to be in violation of any of these requirements, then they will be deemed ineligible for consideration during this proposal process. And then just a reminder that all of your proposals become public records. Okay. I'm not going to read the whole definition here of plagiarism, but do know that the authorizer has adopted this definition from Southern Mississippi, from the University of Southern, and consider plagiarism and copying language without proper attribution grounds for immediate denial. High quality applicant teams with the capacity to operate a high quality school, you have to be able to articulate that. You have to be able to thoughtfully explain that in your own words, because it's going to be up to you to educate those children in a high quality charter school. So understanding that there are some common languages, some common phrases, common what am I trying to say? Common words and language and maybe even formatting that go along with some of the models like Montessori or project-based learning or blended learning. Some of those things are just going to be common. We'll be talking about college and career readiness. We'll be talking about STEM learning. You'll be talking about standards and things like that. So we understand that some of those will mirror the nomenclature of the others, but just a copy paste is not okay. And making sure that you internalize and understand what those words mean that you're presenting. So I think that's probably all I want to say about that. Yeah. Okay, Epicenter, I've mentioned it several different times, but Epicenter has created a training video for you. These are the directions. If you follow these steps, they will take you directly to the little video. It's, I think, 5 to 7 minutes long, but it'll show you how to upload your submissions to Epicenter and the platform there. We also have resources available through Epicenter. And then once you are approved to continue in the process and you've determined your eligibility, then we will get you set up into Epicenter and you'll be able to access that platform without any trouble. Jordan, do you mind just clicking on here? I think will take us, I think here will take us to it. And you'll be able to see, well, okay, I lied. Maybe not. Maybe submissions. Uh-oh. They were working the other day. There it is. And I think go all the way to the bottom on this screen. Applicant training webinar or video. And then you can just click on that. Or you should be able to. And then click on the arrow. Yeah, I think it's about 7 minutes. So this will take you through the general high level overview of how to use Epicenter. So it's really just a point and click to get to the training. All right. I'll go to the next slide. That's fine. Yeah, additional training. So I've mentioned this as well. Separate training webinars will be held throughout the application window. One for eligible applicants and then one simply on MAEP state funding formulas and the required submissions that are related to the financials. Those webinars are forthcoming. And finally, just keep in mind that your application is a professional document. I mentioned that earlier, but it is reflective of the quality of the school that you propose to open and operate. Think about your grammar, your spelling, your formatting, because all of that makes an impression on the evaluator. And we say every year that evaluation teams who can navigate an application that's well organized and effectively edited, they can focus their energy on reviewing the content. So what are you really trying to tell us that you want to be able to do for boys and girls in Mississippi? And then I think that is our last slide there. And the last one is just going to be our contact information. You can contact Jordan at Charter School Support or me at L. Karmacharya at MCSAB. And the platform for support for Epicenter is up there at the very top. And we will have some additional support that's forthcoming. I have a link here to Embark. That's who Kristen is with. And they'll be great help as well. Okay. All right. So what questions do you guys have?
Okay, that was very informative. My first question, in looking at our recommendations from last year, we're going through making some changes to some things as we are going to resubmit. And my question is for stage 2, the threshold review. Is there any point will we have an opportunity to go back and look at some things before it's just like saying either yay or nay?
On stage 2, no.
Okay.
So yeah. So I think it's really important, Casey, that you guys just have a ton of confidence once you hit submit on that you know that you are going to be really successful. And I would encourage you, we will be providing some support outside of the authorizer. And then I know there are other support entities out there as well, national groups and then local groups. So I would encourage you and your team to really get into that work and just be 100% confident before you submit.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. And go back and look at what those comments were last year. And those will be super helpful. And we've had teams actually that have done that over time and then ended up being successful with their applications. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Kimberly, you have any more questions?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say that this was really informative and helpful. And thank you for your time to do this.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. We are happy to do whatever we can, connect you guys with folks where you need help and assistance. We won't have on board until after March 1, our technical assistance provider that's doing the work for us. But again, there are people out there that know this work. Kristen being one of them, she's been in this work for a while. And so if you need to connect with her or you need to connect with the national folks or anybody, we're happy to make connections for you. We really want to see the sector grow, and we really want to see high quality schools that are serving boys and girls. We know we have a need for it. And we know we have a lot of boys and girls, even pre-COVID, we had 100,000 children across the state of Mississippi that were in a D or an F school. And so we know we need to open those opportunities up for families and kids. So however we can be of assistance and not cross our line, but however we can be of assistance, we want to do that and be supportive of you in your application and pursuit.